Welcome back to part 3. I have turned my painting on its side so that I can more easily put in the hair. I'm also able to finish the background at the top more easily by turning it. So don't be afraid to turn your painting to best accommodate your hand. I often do that. Just be sure and protect parts of it if you need to with a piece of glassine. So I'm just adding in some background, and my hand is just slightly out of sight there, not doing anything special. And we'll continue to add the hairs on the dog. I'm taking opportunity to also to darken the chest hairs because we're going to be working on those. So I'm adding some blacks, Rembrandt 700.5 to that area as well. And now I'm using a 276 buff to add creamy colored hairs. I usually use the cream over the browner sections and the gray and white over the white or gray sections. Now I'm using the Caran d'Ache white pencil, and I'm also using the cream colored pencil to add some wild hairs. And now moving back to my new pastel. And here I'm using the edge of our 263 Indian red to add a few of the hairs that go out into the background. Since we put in the background, we can now pull hairs out into the background. And I'm using the buff to do that. You could also use your Caran d'Ache pencil to add those hairs as well. I'm using the 233 raw sienna, which is kind of a gold color. I like it, and I'm going to use it to add lighter colors in this area. It's kind of a middle value. It looks nice over the Indian red especially, I think. And when you add a lighter color over it, it emphasizes that gold. So I'm going to add a little more in other places. Here I've switched to my white 211. You can see how much brighter the hairs are that I'm drawing in with those. And I am using the edge of the pastel. I'm holding it to the paper at about a 45-degree angle and using that straight edge to make these lines. When the pastel gets dull, I simply rotate it in my hand to get another edge to draw the hairs. And I use a very light touch. And it is just one of the softest and most beautiful way to do fur. As the fur is grayer or whiter in this area, I've switched back to my $2.99 NuPastel. Switching up the colors like this will make a huge difference in the artwork. You don't want to just keep using white or buff over this area. This area doesn't have the same tone as the rest of the dog's face. So here we're going to use gray. And now I'm using the 211 white in this area for the hairs that are brighter, that catch the sun. Now in this area next to the ear, I've noticed I need to add some background in before I finish the ear and add the hairs that will be over top of the background. So I'm continuing on with the various colors to finish up this head and this ear using the 233 raw sienna in this area. I'm going to use this in the ear. This makes a nice gold color. I'm using that green background color again to shape the ear. I've realized it's still not the right shape, so I can add some green back into these areas where it goes out the fur goes out too far. So that's what I'm doing. And now I'm just continuing to build this ear up with the different colors. 276, 211 white, or 299 gray. Right now I'm using 276. I am going to need to put some dark areas in, some shadows in that ear. Here I'm using the 353 Cordovan to draw in some darks that I see in the ear. I want to get those in before I continue adding the lights. And now I'm putting the lighter hairs in with the 276 buff. And now we're back in real time, and I'm using the 263 Indian Red to add a few little hairs with the edge, sharp edge of that. I think that looks pretty good. And now I'll continue adding hairs on the side of the dog's face. This is 276 buff. And again, I caution you to always go in the direction the fur grows. And on the side of the head, it grows down on the edges, and some of the edges grow up. So be sure and get them going in the right direction. I'm using the 211 white to add some brighter hairs on the side of the face, a couple in the ear, just some places, not all over, just for emphasis. I'm using my 9B graphite pencil to just lightly go over some of these hairs and blend them in. You can see that makes a huge, huge difference in creating a nice look for our dog. And now I'm using my white to add a couple of bright hairs. I'm going to speed up this section a bit. I'm continuing to add hairs using the same colors. The white, the 299 gray, and the 276 buff. And the 263 Indian red on the edges. And a little bit of the 233 raw sienna as well. Now I'm using my Caran d'Ache pencils to pull in some wild hairs, some more defined hairs. I can curl them around in different directions, and that adds a very special touch to our dog. At this point, I look around my painting and see what it needs to bring it to completion. And I decided I need some darker browns around the eye. So I'm using the 263 New Pastel to add that. Now I've turned my dog back to right side up. I've finished his head, and I'm going to work on his chest area. And we're going to do about the same thing. We're going to use various colors to add the hair to bring this dog to completion. I've zoomed in so you can see a little closer what I'm doing. So I'm using the edge of my black 229 New Pastel to add some black hair to this area of the neck. So you can see I can use either the tip or I can use the edge. Now by using the tip, I am able to guide it in the direction I want a little better. And then I can use the edge to get a finer hair. Here I'm using my 263 Indian Red on its edge to add some brown hair. This would be the dog's shoulder area. I'm going to do that on both sides. Now here I have my 299 gray, and I'm going to add the hairs on the dog's. We're working on the outside edge, and we'll add hair to our dog and pull them in very lightly. His chest is mainly black with a few gray hairs, so that's what I'm doing. I'm adding in a few gray hairs, just a few, going back and forth very, very lightly. I don't want them to be really bright, and I don't want them to draw a lot of attention to themselves. They're also short, and they're varied direction, so be sure and change direction with your stick. Now have moved over to the right hand side where the hair curls towards the right. And I'm continuing to use the gray, and I will pull those out into the shoulder and background area a little bit. And now I have switched to the 276 buff to add a few cream colored hairs. Adding the cream colored hairs over the brown shoulder area mostly, and I'm adding them closer together, and we're going in the same direction. I want them to be a bit more unified than the wilder hairs in the center of the dog's chest area. Now I'm going to use, here I'm using my 700.5 black to add a little more black there. And now I'm going to use the gray to add a few more gray hairs to this area. This is the white charcoal pencil. I'm adding a few wild hairs in here, some individual hairs. I think they look kind of nice, curling them around. And back to adding the buff. Now I've switched to the right shoulder, and I'm adding the buff over the brown, doing exactly like I did on the left. I'm using my 229 black new pastel to add some black hair in this area. And here I'm adding the buff all the way across the bottom of the dog. Now we're going to add our finishing touches and pull this painting together. So I'm using the 211 white to add a few brighter hairs. that are struck by the sun on the right-hand side of the dog. I'm also adding some white hair across the bottom into where the buff hairs are. And I'm using the white charcoal pencil to add a few individual hairs. Now the reason I'm using this instead of Caran d'Ache is because it is lighter. I don't want a real strong color here. By using the white charcoal pencil, it has more of a gray look when applied over. And now I'm using the black charcoal pencil, the 6B, to add some black hair, which kind of ties together the lighter hairs at the bottom of the dog by adding these black hairs as well. Now I am going to use the Caran d'Ache here to add emphasis. So if I want a brighter hair, fine hair, I can use this, the Caran d'Ache. If I need kind of a gray, I'll use the white charcoal pencil. Now I'm using the green, the darker green, the 630, the 619.3 permanent green deep to finish the background off. So I want to work this dark green color into the bottom edge of the fur. And what we're creating is a vignette look to the dog. And so we want to add that dark green, and then we're going to add darker colors over that. I'm going to use the 704.3 dark gray and also the black to finish that bottom edge off and make it blend into the background color. I'm using the charcoal pencil to add a few more black hairs around the eye. And I'm going to use the Caran d'Ache white pencil to reinforce the white of the eye and also the reflected, the little light on the lid and the little highlights in the corner. I'm just making those a little brighter. A couple of little bright white hairs here under the eye. Now I'm adding whiskers with my black charcoal pencil. Now I'm taking a last look around my dog to see what else needs to be added to finish him up. So I'm going to use my white pastel pencil, my white new pastel stick to add a few more white hairs. And my Indian red to add a few brown hairs to my painting. Still looking around. I think I'll add a few more white hairs. It's always a good idea after you think you're finished to put your painting aside for a couple of days and then come back and have another look and see if there's something else you would change. I'm going to sign my name with a Sharpie. I use an ultra fine. And I think he's done. I hope you've enjoyed this workshop. If you'd like to see more workshops, video workshops, please go to my website, which is www.kwit.com. I have lots of instructional packets and also video workshops. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.